giving you an opportunity to get on this kid's bandwagon. Singing praises to the world. He's a hell of an athlete. He may be the greatest.
Look. That is what evolution is all about.
Right, baby.
You see that tonight? You went from being a legend killer to being a legend. I'm proud of you, kid.
Right, baby. Send that.
Yeah.
Let's do it, Trey.
Welcome to Last Match Standing, the podcast where we review, relive, and rank the greatest wrestling matches of all time. As always, I'm Spenser.
I'm Barbie.
And I'm the Fire Marshal.
And today we are coming to you from April 18th, 2004, from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, the Rexall place. It's Backlash 2004. Randy Orton versus Mick Foley in a hardcore match for the Intercontinental Championship.
What a pro wrestling perfect storm in one of the greatest years in WWE history. A young and hungry Randy Orton looking to make a name for himself. A returning Mick Foley, who, although not full-time anymore, hasn't lost a damn step.
Nope.
And these guys are willing to do whatever it takes to push the envelope and redefine what mainstream wrestling can look like in 2004. This match is a rare, brutal, beautiful gem.
Yeah, coming off of what was a really solid WrestleMania 20, right? Lots of highs, lots of peaks in that show. There were some valleys, but there were peaks too at WrestleMania 20. And it's arguable that Backlash 2004 was even better. Backlash 2004 was a really, really good show, top to bottom. And this match stands out amongst some really, really good ones on that card. And you're absolutely right. This is 2004. As WWE has transitioned out of the Attitude Era, here we are in this new era, not yet too PG, right?
No,
and so
very
who
far
is the
from that.
WWE right now in 2004, right? And a match like this, I think, helps paint that picture.
It does. And it's just, both of these men have praised this match as one of the best in their career.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Just last year, on the anniversary of the match, right? Both men took to Twitter. And Mick Foley said 16 years ago today, right? So this was a tweet from last year. The best match of my career. Randy Orton replied and said that is probably my favorite and the most impactful match of my career. That's straight from the two guys in it, right?
That's incredible if you think about the brawls that Mick Foley has had and
Mind games.
and the incredible rivalries that Randy Orton has had, that they both look back at this match so fondly. And so do all of you, because this match won out on a Twitter poll.
Landslide.
Yeah, on
absolute landslide.
On both Twitter and Patreon.
Yep.
Absolutely. It absolutely did. And we love, by the way, the feedback there and the interaction and you guys involving yourselves and taking the time to vote. We super, super appreciate that. As Season 4 has rolled along here, first of all, we want to say thank you for being patient with us. I know that our schedule has not been perfect or ideal, but we're working through it, and I think we're getting to a better place. It's just been, a busy time. And so we normally take a mid-season break. We did not do that after episode 70. We went ahead and released episode 71, but unintentionally.
We had the Hurricane Ida really slowed us down here in South Louisiana.
True. That's absolutely true.
And a lot of things just sort of popped up after that. So thank you so much for sticking with us. We're so excited to be back, and we hope you enjoy this one. It's going to be a really fun episode.
So what we're trying to say is, we're back real and better than ever.
I do want to shout out Bruce on Twitter really quickly. We haven't had a chance because it's been a couple of weeks to go through sort of interactions and really cool things that have happened. And Bruce reached out to us on Twitter and said that I have officially caught up to all of the Last Match main feed and Patreon content.
That is extremely impressive.
In the span of about 2 months. I mean, it's wildly impressive. He said, 1, highly recommend. 2, definitely going to need more of that ASAP. So, Bruce, man, hey, thanks so much. super appreciate that. We have loved doing this show in all different capacities that we do it in, and it's for people like you that enjoy it. So thank you so much for being along for the ride. 2 months worth. I mean, that is so impressive. I can't even think about listening to my voice for that much for 2 months. So thanks for doing that. We're sort of getting back on the bandwagon here, and so I would expect some more Patreon Twitter polls throughout the course of season 4. We've gotten some really good suggestions from you guys during this little mini break here that we've had, and so we've got some really, really exciting stuff to look forward to.
Most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. But this match, Randy Orton, Mick Foley, you talked about how Mick Foley hasn't lost a step. JR says on commentary, we've got JR and King here, and JR says on commentary that Foley was billed at 272 in weight, which is the lowest he's weighed for a match since 1989.
Wow.
That blows my mind.
How about that? I mean, here's the thing that you don't realize maybe about Mick Foley. That's a big dude.
It is.
Yes.
Like, if you've met him in person, he is massive. And I don't know why something about him you don't think that necessarily when you watch him wrestle. But he's a big man.
No, he's like 6'4".
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's big.
Yeah, he's a big man. And he's in great shape in this match. And there is no reason at all I need to go into the shape that Randy Orton is in.
Well, and we talk a
Yes,
lot.
Randy.
We talk a lot about how Evolution molded Randy Orton a whole lot. But how different would Randy Orton's career have looked without this match with Mick Foley?
I don't think he would have gotten past the Evolution days. I think
It's hard to imagine.
I think he would have been labeled as, oh, he's a wimp. He's not a tough guy. He can't like out brawl or like
Or he can't be pictured in the main event scene, right?
But
Think about it. I'm sorry, Paul. Think about it. And this is a comparison I'm going to try to not make very often on this episode, but it's one that I think is worth bringing up here. Edge Mick Foley, WrestleMania 22. That match elevated Edge to a different level.
yes,
And then look at what happens here in 2004. It's just a couple months later, Randy Orton wins the World Heavyweight Championship.
yes, he does.
Triple H, Mick Foley, 2000 Royal Rumble.
Thank you.
Absolutely catapulted Triple H onto a whole other plane of
Because
existence.
before that, he was the sniveling heel that had to have everybody else interfere and win matches for him. And after that, it's like, no, he's a sadistic bastard. And
He was a
will do-
legit guy. And there had already been a little bit of those seeds planted prior to their Royal Rumble match. But just talking about how much Mick Foley has given to us as wrestling fans, one of those things that might be overlooked sometimes is the other wrestlers that were wrestling him. He gave that to us.
No, you are so right about that. One, this is a great opportunity to bring up the taxi at the Royal Rumble 2000 set. It just feels like it needs to be said every time we can possibly bring it up.
Love it.
Two, you're absolutely right. Mick Foley is one of those guys, almost like a Shawn Michaels, where win or lose almost doesn't matter for him, right? Because of what he's able to do in the ring and how he's able to showcase the talent he's in the ring with. And I think that speaks volumes to the impact Mick Foley has had on the wrestling industry.
Well, we have spoken volumes about Mick Foley on the show previously.
Yes, we have.
He has been listed. He's on this list several times over, and
Yeah, so he's on our list as Mankind.
Yep.
As Mick Foley, as Cactus Jack. We don't have a Dude Love match.
Not yet.
On our list.
Not yet.
I don't know if we will
listen,
either.
yeah, you guys, if there's anybody out there that thinks that there's a Dude Love match that is one of the 100 greatest of all time,
we want to review it.
yeah, you let us know. But we would love to do all three faces of Foley on the list. But Landon, go ahead, man.
But so we've talked about Mick Foley. I don't think Randy Orton has been on this list before. At least I think he is in the Survivor Series match that we've covered.
Yeah, he's there.
But other than that, I can't recall a Randy Orton match on our list. So
I'm pretty sure this is his first singles match.
That is a fact, yeah.
with that being said, let's talk about Randy Orton a little bit before we get into this match.
Randall.
If you're listening to this,
Randall Keith Orton.
I'm sure you know Randall Keith Orton is a third-generation wrestler despite his father's best efforts to convince Randy not to become a wrestler. It's a tough life. Look, we are so glad that he did and went on to become one of the greatest performers in WWE history, but you know, how much time do wrestlers spend away from their families? You know, it's like something that you never really think about, you never really talk about. But his dad was just like, don't do it, and he did it. After a brief career in the U.S. Marines, Randy's pro wrestling career officially began in the year 2000 in the Mid-Missouri Wrestling Association's Southern Illinois Conference Wrestling. Give me that acronym back.
Wow. It sounds like a group of 5 football conference.
Shortly after, he was signed by WWF and sent to OVW, where he began his long-standing rivalry and friendship with John Cena.
Did they ever wrestle each other? Those two guys?
A couple times.
1,000 times.
A lot of people don't know.
You think I'm joking?
No, I don't.
No, definitely not. A lot of people don't know Randy Orton is a 2-time OVW Hardcore champion. You don't see him go to the hardcore wrestling route too often, but he has never been afraid to do whatever it takes to win. Orton's time in OVW ended as part of the legendary 2002 graduation class alongside Brock Lesnar, John Cena, and Dave Bautista.
They'll never make anything in this business, I'm telling you.
I mean, talk about being in OVW in 2002. Just insane.
Yeah, that's wild.
One of the first matches under the WWE banner for Orton was a WrestleMania 18 Access Fit match that only the fans who went to Access saw against Tommy Dreamer.
Wow.
Talking about hardcore.
Yeah.
Randy Orton made his WWE TV debut on SmackDown in a winning effort against, do you know? Anybody know? Nope.
He's got blue tight, like Randy Orton's. Is this blue tight phase? Randy
Blue
Orton?
tight phase with the orange trim.
God, I'm seeing the
yellow
highlight
trim.
in
Bob
my
Holly?
Bob Holly. That is correct.
Yep. I might have
April
gotten there, I don't know.
2002 on SmackDown.
How do you like me now?
That's right. In September, Randy Orton was traded to Raw, but suffered a shoulder injury shortly after his Raw debut match.
Oh, yeah, and he was off TV for a while.
He was. Well, actually, no. He wasn't off TV. He didn't wrestle.
He
During
had
his recovery.
didn't he have like these like newsroom style segments?
Yes. Paul remembers.
You know why I remember? Because he interrupts Shawn Michaels' pre-match promo before the 2002 Elimination Chamber.
That's
at
what
Survivor
he
Series.
did.
Yeah,
That's what it was. The Randy News Network segments would interrupt other segments.
that's so funny.
That was the whole deal.
It's funny because whenever he is in Evolution, he was still doing that gimmick. When they brought him out, he got the RNN thing, and I'm like, who the fuck
RNN,
is this
that was
guy? And I'm like, he's going to be in this new super group. And then this other guy named Mark Gendrick. Sorry, Dave Bautista is going to be in this group.
Well, no, the Batista. I can't. I think it might have been actually Batista joined first, and then Randy.
He did.
Came back, and it was a big shock because he like attacked somebody. I can't remember exactly what happened. But anyway, it sort of was a way to keep Randy front of mind, and while selling him as this narcissistic heel that we all know and love today. Randy returned as a member of the newly formed Evolution stable, as we talked about, alongside Batista, Ric Flair, and Triple H. Randy's 2003 was outstanding. He entered the Elimination Chamber alongside Triple H. He won the Intercontinental Championship from Rob Van Dam, which began the greatest Intercontinental title reign of all time. Okay, I'm biased. It was a 210-day reign, and he was building the perfect heel character, the Legend Killer. I mean, this was, total bias from me.
Listen, your fanboy is showing hard.
He was my
Landon.
absolute favorite wrestler during this time period.
Yeah.
I stood up every time his entrance music
I get it.
came on. Like, I was just all in. June 23rd, 2003, Monday Night Raw, Madison Square Garden, the last stop in that arena before WrestleMania 20. Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out, and he decides it's time to recognize one of New York's greatest performers, Mick Foley. All the ECW originals came out. I remember seeing this live because RVD actually came out with the WWF Hardcore Championship in this like case and everything. I thought they were going to reinstate the belt. I thought that was the point of the segment. So I was like,
they had like literally just gotten rid of it.
I know. It was a huge bummer though. It's a great segment, very real. But later, as Mick is in the back signing autographs for his new book backstage, Ric Flair and Randy Orton sort of walk by, and they're not in a great mood. They just lost a tag team match kind of deal. Well, Foley stops them and says, look, you did a great job in your match. He's just trying to give him a compliment. And they didn't take that very well. Having lost, they thought, taking a slide at him. So Foley's assaulted backstage, leading to Orton punting Mick Foley down a flight of stairs in Madison Square Garden. It almost reminded me of like the Zach Gowen, Brock Lesnar stare,
absolutely,
kind of deal. Foley actually he needed 5 stitches in his head after this, which he always hated because it's like he gave his all to that, and they never showed that he actually got busted open from falling down the stairs. It was never shown on TV. And so this is essentially Orton claiming his first victim as the Legend Killer. This is the first one. And that was supposed to be it. Foley had never had plans to come back and have this huge feud. But Foley continued to watch Randy Orton on TV after this event. And he loved Randy's character. He loved his in-ring work and how well that matched up with this narcissistic way. It's something special about being able to sell a character and seeing if that character is going to translate into the way you move in the ring. It 100% does for Randy Orton. And so he called up Vince and said, hey, I want to work with this kid. I want to be the first wrestler to ever chicken out of a match. He really wanted to be scheduled for a match and just walk out the door when his music hit. But it didn't really go over well with Stephanie and a couple other people in the back. And so they said, look, we're not going to do that. So he essentially ended up getting jumped by Evolution instead. On the December 15th, 2003 Raw main event, Randy Orton is booked in a match against Mick Foley again for the Intercontinental Championship. If Foley wins, Bischoff would leave Raw. But if Randy won, Foley would not be able to return to the WWE in any capacity. No Dude Love, no Cactus Jack. This is where he pulls his walkout spot, right? But it goes down a little bit differently. We think he's going to go back there and get Barbie or a chair or something, right? He's got a huge bag of tricks. Well, he takes his bag and just walks out. We see him go to the parking lot. So Randy tracks him down, and this is an iconic moment that everybody thinks about when they think of Randy Orton. He spits in his face. And guess what? It worked. Everyone was just engrossed in this story, and everyone hated Randy Orton.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody but Mick Foley could have pulled this off. Because essentially, like, what does it say about a wrestler who just, like, is booked for a match, his music hits, he walks down the ramp, and then walks out? Like, that's not interesting unless it's somebody as lovable and likable and understandable. And, like, you understood why someone like Mick Foley might be, lose his courage a little bit at this point in his career. He's such a nice guy. And so he does go on to explain the following week, like, because the assumption here is that Mick couldn't come back because he forfeited the match. Well, on Raw, Foley's music hits, and there's this huge pop for, oh my God, Foley's going to come explain himself. And it's Randy Orton. And he's demanding that Lillian Garcia come to the ring and officially announce that Randy retained the the Intercontinental Championship and is dubbed the Hardcore Champion or the Hardcore Legend.
I remember this.
Later, he would back this up by defending the Intercontinental Championship against Foley's friend and fellow hardcore legend, Rob Van Dam. And after the match, he was just like, Foley, where were you? I invited you to Raw with this ticket. Look, you didn't show up. I gave you a front row ticket. He didn't show. They were also playing these like political attack ads for Foley at the time. That was just like, Mick Foley, coward, didn't come to Raw, like all this stuff.
Yeah, I feel like Vince gets a kick out of just demeaning.
It was
Foley.
awesome. It was pretty interesting. The next week, Steve Austin comes out and cuts a promo on Foley, and because this is Sheriff Austin, he comes out on Monday Night Raw every week saying something.
Jesus Christ, son, you gonna take that from Randy Orton?
That's right.
Why don't you go drink some beer and kick his ass?
He said this wasn't the Foley that he knows.
Yeah.
And as Sheriff of Monday Night Raw, Austin ordered Foley to show up at the Royal Rumble. And if he didn't, he would show up to his house and drag him to the Royal Rumble. So Orton carries this crazy momentum from his incredible 2003 into the 2004 Royal Rumble, where he entered number 2 and lasted 30 minutes before being eliminated by the number 21 entrant, Mick Foley. Orton would then assault Foley with a chair, leading to a series of brutal attacks. The next night on Raw, Mick goes on to explain what happened. What made him so great back in the day was that he was able to channel this hatred that he had, for his family, for friends, for people that always turned on him, and channel that into his opponents without mercy. And he was willing to do anything to his own body to inflict pain on his opponent because of this hate that he had. Well, after he retired, he was happy. He had a great family life. He's just not that guy anymore. And that sort of clicked for him whenever he was walking out to the ring that night. Well, Foley calls out Orton, and he demands for him to spit in his face again. Orton does. And so Foley responds with, "I have no problem with you spitting in my face. My kids have done much worse. But when you call yourself the hardcore legend, you're spitting on my legacy. And that's something that I take very personally." He then proceeds to punch himself in the face until he bleeds and attacks Orton. But of course, Evolution comes out to even the odds. So the assumption here is that we're going to see Orton versus Foley at WrestleMania 20.
Instead, we get the reunion of the Rock and Sock connection.
We do, because you have to balance that out, right? It's Evolution. It wouldn't just be Foley and Orton at Mania. We know Evolution is there. And so The Rock comes back, the crowd erupts, and WrestleMania 20 comes around. Foley, incredibly nervous. And yeah, we had that backstage segment where he looks kind of nervous and The Rock is trying to amp him up. No. Mick Foley is actually nervous. He hadn't worked a match in 4 years.
No.
And the idea of competing in Madison Square Garden, the same arena where he had one of the greatest matches of all time against Evolution leader Triple H, it put a lot of pressure on him to perform like the Mick Foley of old. Like he hadn't missed a beat. Could he do that? It was really in his head. And you could really see it throughout the match and throughout the backstage segment. So much so that Steve Austin went up to him after the match and was just like, "You dropped the ball there." He legitimately said that to him. And Foley recognized that there was a lot of missed potential, missed opportunity with this match, and he was determined not to go out on a good enough match. The next week on Raw, Foley calls out Randy and says the only way that he could call himself a hardcore legend is if you could beat Mick Foley in a hardcore match 1-on-1. So he challenges Randy for the Intercontinental Championship at Backlash to a hardcore match with Evolution banned from ringside.
I like that stipulation.
And you could hear the intensity in his voice. Like, he's very, very serious about it, and there's a lot of passion behind it, and you can tell he's not just doing it because it's in the script. Like, Mick needs this. And Randy accepts. But if you go watch this and watch the way Randy says yes, it's immediate regret. You could tell his confidence is slipping a little bit.
Of course I'll wrestle. Oh, wait a minute. Shit.
Like, what the hell did I just do? Well, after Randy accepts, he introduces Randy to Barbie, the barbed wire bat, and tells Randy Mick Foley isn't showing up to Backlash. But Cactus Jack will see him there. I guarantee you Randy Orton did not have a nice day.
No.
After that.
No, he did not.
The Foley versus Evolution feud was one of the better storylines going on from that era. It lasted 10 months.
Right.
But this feud is still considered one of the greatest of all time.
For good reason.
I've always found the world hardcore really had nothing to do with chairs. It had nothing to really do with tables. garbage cans, cookie sheets. The name hardcore signified that I love the fans enough to put my body through unimaginable pain. And even when I had the chance to take part in some barbaric matches, deep down in my heart I rested with the comfort that I was doing it for love. And I swore I'd never go back. But in trying to recapture the passion that I thought I lacked at WrestleMania, I went back and I looked at the tapes. But it wasn't the barbed wire. It wasn't the tacks that caught my eye. It was my eyes. And it was there that said deep down, maybe there was a little part of me that didn't mind inflicting that type of damage. Deep down when I heard the scream, the suffering, the agony, maybe deep down, I even loved it. Randy Orton, these were honorable men. They never spit in my face. They never took cheap shot, triple team efforts to send me to the hospital. But the fact is, when I had the chance, I wrapped the arm in barbed wire and I tore them apart. So if I were you, I'd be asking myself a simple question, and that question would be, then what the hell is this man going to do to me at Backlash, knowing full well he hates my guts? The answer, Randy Orton, is simple. I'm gonna tear you apart. I'm gonna take Barbie, and I'm gonna fuck you off. I'm gonna teach you what it means to be hardcore. I'm gonna tear. I'm gonna gorge, and I'm going to love it.
And that brings us to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. JR and King on commentary, and would you believe it, for the first time ever, Mike Chioda, the official in this match.
How has he not been on this podcast?
I can't believe it. I'm as surprised as you are. But how about it? Randy Orton, Cactus Jack. This is a match that so many of our listeners have been clamoring for such a long time, and it's one that we all remember so fondly. They do a great job of having a really great video package recap right before the match, which, always sets the tone really well when those are done well.
I love a good package.
Wow.
Randy Orton, during his entrance, JR says, you might want to take a good look at Randy Orton's face. You may never see it in this condition again. Orton comes out with a garbage can full of weapons. It's a hardcore match. That's what you do, right? Mick Foley comes out with Barbie. And Cactus Jack gear is on.
Oh, yeah. The leopard print boots are here, baby. Woo!
And it's time for the Intercontinental Championship. Hardcore Legend versus Legend Killer.
So can we talk about how Jack immediately goes insane with Barbie and they take out a cameraman?
I love it. I mean, this match is going to start with high intensity just based off of the build and how much this means to both of these guys.
Absolutely. And it does. They tear apart a garbage can. You're right, that poor cameraman never stood a chance.
I felt kind of bad for him, but I'm like, you knew what you were getting into, sir.
Orton's barbed wire 2x4 unraveling at the very start, it's such great symbolism for the false hardcore legend that he's been claiming to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's something that I appreciate so much about this moment in this match is they gave them time.
They really did.
23 minutes worth, right, from bell to bell. 23 minutes for Foley and Orton to finish telling the story. And it needed every second of it.
Did you guys catch the Freddy versus Jason reference from Jerry?
Definitely did. Definitely did.
It's like,
this match was just about as gory as that movie.
Pretty much. There's a lot of blood. So
that you gotta love a aluminum trash can in a hardcore match. It gets unrecognizably destroyed.
Oh yeah. Not as unrecognizably destroyed as that backdrop onto the entrance ramp.
Oh my god, yeah.
Woo.
There are so many bumps that they take in this match that are not in the ring.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And I did really enjoy Randy going for a backslide.
A backslide on the ramp.
Like, I know it's Falls Count anywhere, but what the fuck are you doing?
Oh, I loved it. I just thought, this is so dumb. I'm so here for it. Give me the backslide on the ramp.
But you know what I didn't love? Him repeatedly smashing Jack's head on that ramp. I didn't like that. and then he throws him head first into the steel stairs.
Yeah, when they do end up back in the ring, Foley sort of adjusts the pace, and he goes to work sort of on the mat, which is interesting. It's almost to prove a point, right? Like, I can beat you at your own game too. I mean, it doesn't last super long. They go out there and they go back to the hardcore style too. But I almost feel like that was extremely intentional for Mick Foley.
Yeah, I would fully agree. And we have a really interesting back and forth here in the beginning, right? Orton is using the garbage can on Foley's head. I mean, we're getting the same sort of Foley stuff that we're used to in terms of he's just getting totally, beaten down here by all these weapons. But Foley neckbreaker on the outside, sort of before the Orton back suplex onto the ramp. And so there's a really good tit for tat happening in the early onset of this match. I think something that sort of changes things is when Foley is trying to fend off Barbie, right? He's trying to fend off Barbie, and he hits the low blow on Randy Orton, right? And so, listen, hardcore match, that's totally fair game, but it gives an opportunity. It opens up a chance for him to get Sacco. And so here we are. In the first 7 minutes of the match, he pulls out Mr. Sacco, and we're thinking, Mandible Claw, it's happening. But then he's torn, right? Cactus Jack is torn. Do I go with Sacco or Barbie?
And he chose Barbie.
This is the beauty of Mick Foley in this stage of his career, is he has all of these things in his toolbox that he can go to. And, he asked the fans, he's like, Sacco?
Boo.
And a decent cheer. Yeah. Decent cheer for Sacco. Or Barbie.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting. Am I Mick Foley tonight or am I Cactus Jack? That's basically what he's asking, right?
Well, and a barbed wire bat is pretty tough to defend against. Like, what do you throw your hands up? Like,
right, and then and then how's that?
What is that going to do?
Right,
like, it still hurts.
Yeah. So Orton gets the Barbie to the barbed wire baseball bat to the face. Orton is bleeding, and I love this moment on commentary because King is like, no, he's a model. He's got a model's face. This is terrible. He's never going to be on the cover of any magazines. And JR says, well, maybe he'll be on the cover of Disfigurement Weekly.
Oh. Well, Foley also disfigures Randy's downstairs, and the crowd chants something.
I never catch it.
I didn't
never
catch
got
it
there.
Because we tried to figure it out. I didn't
Please
catch
go
it.
listen to this. If you have maybe the DVD, you might hear it better. I guess Peacock may have dumbed it down. I can't understand what they're saying here.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It is hard to tell. All I can hear is King saying he's not only sick, he's perverted. That's what King says in the moment. But the crowd is chanting something. I have no idea what they're chanting.
I have no idea what they're chanting. I was chanting, you sick fuck. You sick fuck. And then could
have been it.
We have simultaneously my favorite moment of the match and also my most hated moment of the match.
Oh, no.
Jack produces a can of gasoline and douses Barbie in gas, grabs a lighter, and then, no, Cactus Jack McFarlane, whatever you're calling yourself, if you light that on fire, not only will you lose the match, but the fire marshal will shut this show down and deprive all these fans of a good show. You son of a bitch, don't do it. And I'm like, fuck you, but also, I love the heat this gets.
It does get some heat on Bischoff, which is argued, like, did you need that? Like,
probably not, but I got it. But my thing was, if the fire marshal legitimately did say, no, you can't do that, then just don't do this. Don't tease the fans with fire and then not give it to them.
I sort of agree with that.
I mean, it's not like the Taipei death match. Like,
because
this match isn't going to happen.
You're not going to remember this segment.
Anyway.
You're not going to remember this after the match. So why have it in there in the first place? The only thing I could think of is that it was originally scheduled to happen.
I think it was, because I'm almost certain that was actually gasoline he was pouring.
Yeah.
It was not clear.
No, I think this was supposed to be a flaming barbed wire moment, but the athletic commission probably shut it down. They probably actually got wind of it and told them not to do it.
But I do like Jack's like, all right, fine. I'm going to get this piece of plywood covered in barbed wire.
Yeah, he's got a backup plan. So let me just ask you, where does one find a barbed wire bed in the wild?
underneath Terry Funk's bed.
Now it makes all the sense.
That would be the wild, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Don't think too much about that. Just
Well, you see,
no.
you see, Cactus, I have this bed I like to sleep on every now and then. It's kind of like a back scratcher. It'll carve you up pretty good.
So speaking of things you just find in the wild, where the hell was Randy Orton hiding that powder?
In his trunks?
Only thing I can think of. I have no idea where that came from. I have
It literally
no idea where that
came
came
out of
from.
nowhere.
Yeah. But
That was one of the best surprise moments, because typically you see them go under the ring and put something in their hands or something. I had no idea that he had powder in his hands when he did that spot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like he went pocket sand. Oh!
and as so often happens in Mick Foley's career, the weapon that he brought out is what's used against him.
Yeah, because after that powder, Randy does the patented power slam onto the barbed wire bed, and I'm like, oh, it looks painful.
Yeah,
It's not cotton candy.
I mean, listen,
No.
I don't know. I don't know. Obviously, barbed wire, I don't know how you can gimmick it to any extent. I'm sure there are plastic tips or whatever
Rubber.
it is. Rubber, yeah. But still.
Well, you see the markings on Mick's arm. His all gashed up. So I think at least some of it was razor wire.
Yeah. It's just...
Oh, no, not razor. Razor wire would have,
It would have killed him.
yeah, it was just barbed wire.
Well, just like with
Things elevated.
the Big Show and JBL with the razor wire cage.
That's
That was a terrible idea.
There is no part of me ever that wants to feel barbed wire against my skin.
Me neither.
Okay, no thank you.
But I don't mind watching Cactus Jack Irish whipped into it and then drop kicked onto it and then have it thrown onto him while down on the mat.
Well, there's one element that's introduced rather late into the match that is a very, very important element. And those would be thumbtacks, ladies and
I
gentlemen.
was waiting for this because that
No
box,
gummy bears this time.
That box was just chilling in the corner for a long time.
It sure was.
I was really hoping it was head. Al Snow. That's what I was hoping for, but thumbtacks it
That would have
is.
been really funny, actually.
Thumbtacks it is.
The thumbtacks come out.
hardcore legend right there.
And then
Hey.
I think the moment that everybody remembers this match for, the RKO attempt that is blocked, and he is just shoved, lands back, and apparently hand first.
He got some height on that RKO.
Oh, yeah.
And so falling from that height into thumbtacks is ill-advised at best. And his reaction, you got to believe, is 1,000%
real.
genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just wonderful.
That is him going, "Oh, you said it wasn't going to be this bad."
Yep.
But then he looks at his hand.
That's
It's-
probably actually what he's thinking.
for me, though, when you see his hand and wrist are just completely
Yeah.
covered, and I'm like, oh, is this supposed to work a match if he got his hand? Which is why I'm convinced they actually go backstage.
Yeah, of course, the line, he looks like a human pincushion happens, of course, because he actually does. And you're right, Paul, they go up the ramp up to the top of the stage. They disappear for 30 seconds or less. They're gone, not very long. But the tacks are gone from his hand when they return, which is, good. But it is not the end of things,
Oh, no.
as we know.
When Foley tosses Orton from the stage,
Oh,
he leaves behind this miasma of blood, sweat, and tacks that just go flying through the air.
Have you been listening to Matt Stryker do commentary?
You know.
My asthma. Your asthma? My asthma?
I do love how after that he's like, fuck it, I'm going to do a diving elbow drop.
God, I love it.
How about Air Foley?
Air Foley. We needed it. I'm glad we got it. Although,
great.
I will say, the thing that that box that they fall through had a really sharp corner
Yeah, it did.
that it looks like Foley avoids on the landing,
One
but I
would
was just
hope.
like, that was way too close for comfort because that thing was sharp.
Well, and Foley's arm already looks like hamburger meat at this point.
Oh, God.
It's bad.
I hate the hamburger meat reference. Oh, it's so gross.
It's what it looks like.
No.
So somehow Randy kicks out.
How the hell does he kick out of that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But Jack is not cool with that. So he drags what's left of the hamburger patty of beef that he as Randy Orton at this point back to the ring, double arm DDT. And I'm like, that's it. Match is over.
Well, Kyoto goes for the count, but he must have hit a thumbtack or something.
Yeah, he struggled. Listen, if he was going to make our list, he was going to earn it. Okay, so he does.
And he doesn't. He probably gets the thumbtack in his hand on the 1, but he still goes for the 2. And when
that had to push it in further, didn't it?
And then on the 3, when Orton kicks out, he sells it. And he's like, God damn it.
But yeah, Orton, who looks like he's defeated, isn't. He kicks out of that double arm DDT.
And he retrieves Barbie. And I'm like, haven't we seen enough of this damn bat? And apparently Mick Foley thought so because he gets a low blow to one Randall Orton.
Yeah, at this point, Orton, of course, has been bleeding. They do really good camera work in catching Orton really when he gets busted open earlier in the match and getting that sort of look from him. Foley gets busted open. It looks like he gets hit right in the face with Barbie. And I
think he does.
Yeah, and he looks cut, like right over his eye or something because his face is pretty covered pretty quickly, which is a weird mix with the powder that's on his face still.
Yeah,
so it's quite an image.
He's still covered in powder.
But you're right. The low blow by Randy Orton.
This guy was either in a hardcore wrestling match or at a crazy night at the club.
Well, listen.
Or both.
or both. And then the first RKO from Randy Orton.
I like how he gets the mandible claw locked back in again, and that's when the RKO is hit.
Yeah, love that.
But I don't think he got all of it, and apparently neither did Mick because Mick kicks out. And I don't think anybody kicked out of the RKO at this point.
Yeah, how about that? I thought that was interesting as well. But also not totally surprising considering what happens next. Randy Orton, after hitting the first RKO,
hits the Barbie KO.
Hits the second one onto the barbed wire baseball bat, right? And that is enough to seal the deal.
But notice, though, Jack tried to kick out, but he just didn't have the strength for it.
Which is such a great Foley thing. We've seen him do that a couple of times.
Yep.
The landing on the barbed wire bat was as perfect as you could have imagined it. Like, I don't know if they practiced that or if Foley just has great precision, but it looked really great, and I don't think this match could have ended any other way.
Agreed.
Evolution stayed out of it the whole time.
Yep, even when it's over.
Yeah, they come retrieve Orton from ringside, but nothing, they don't, attack. Nothing post-match happens.
Randy Orton was the better man against Mick Foley in a hardcore match.
That's it.
He won it clean, and I think this cemented Randy Orton as an incredible performer.
Agreed.
That was going to go really far in professional wrestling.
And a tough guy.
And hell of a tough guy. Just absolutely excellent match.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. This is a moment, like you said, Landon, in a really good year, this is a standout still. And for Mick Foley I feel like we've talked all the time about Foley's last performance, right? And he just keeps sort of moving that bar for what his last performance was going to be. And this was really, really good. And of course, like you said, Randy Orton that we know today maybe doesn't exist.
I don't think so.
If this match doesn't happen.
Speaking of setting the bar, gentlemen, what are your favorite moments?
God, really, it's that first drop into the thumbtacks for Randy. That reaction from him.
Yeah, I would have to agree. And I really love, actually, Foley rolls up Orton right afterwards. And it's like the ugliest roll-up I've ever seen. But it's like Randy's got tacks in his back.
Oh,
so, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But it's a great, great, great moment.
For me, it's the tossing Randy off the stage and then the officials coming to him and he attacks him and then does the elbow. That gets me every time. And then, as I said earlier, for some reason, Bischoff stopping the fire. And I'm like, why do I like this? I should hate this. I don't. Maybe it's because it's like Bischoff being Bischoff and you're like, oh, fuck you, you're robbing us of the fire. When in reality, it's like, we're not going to do the fire, but we're going to tease you. Yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, I think Foley punches Jack Doan.
He does.
I don't know what Jack did to deserve it, but I guess
Wouldn't let him attack Randy
Don't
Orton.
ask him.
Don't ask.
So, I love this match. I think this is probably one of the best, if not one of the better, if not the best hardcore matches they've done. Because this is I felt like for a long time the hardcore matches were silly and like comedy. This is not silly.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, and I do feel like there was a little bit of a governor here. Like they didn't go completely insane. They did a lot here though, but I just don't think that WWE was going to let Randy do anything completely insane. I can't help but compare this to the One Night Stand 2006 match between Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer against Edge and Mick Foley. I can't help but compare it to that because that is this is what happens when there are no rules and you guys can do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison, actually.
This is the much more WWE is all right, you can do this, but we're going to tame it a little bit. And that doesn't take anything away because this match is great. I love this match. So I feel like it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like damned if you do let them go even further and then they do both get seriously injured, and damned if you don't because, oh man, they should have done this, this, and this. So I feel like it does suffer from that a little bit, but at the same time is this match is fucking great. So that being said, we have to rank this thing, guys.
Yeah, for the 72nd time, right? And this one to me is it's unique. There's only a couple of matches that you can look to on our list and compare them in terms of style. And so that makes it a difficult one to rank. But it's also one that people remember really, really fondly.
Oh yeah.
And so that's something to keep in mind here when we think about all the things that go into what we use to rank a match like this. So with that being said, here we are for now the 12th time in season 4. Does anyone want to volunteer to put themselves through going first?
Sure, I'll go first. Never mind.
Well,
I started talking first.
I
so.
think I should go first because I'm going to be biased.
Fair.
This is Randy Orton in 2004, who is, if you were to say who was your favorite wrestler who from the time period that when you watched them, it would be 2004 Randy Orton for me. And so with that bias, sort of, I'll try and put it aside, but if it could be 100% aside, I don't know. Right now, the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, well, look at the Cactus Jack versus Triple H match from the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah.
Incredible match, one of the greatest ever. And I think this one outpaces it, and it does greater things for both of these guys than that one did for Triple H and Mick Foley.
I think Mick is in significantly better condition here.
And he just needs it more here, and you can tell.
At the Rumble, he had some time off, but he was really hurting.
For reference, that is match number 43 on our list of 71 so far.
And so I'd like to do a crawl-up from there. If I think it's better than that, do I think it's better than DIY Revival? Hell yeah. I don't even like DIY Revival that much.
You have made that perfectly clear.
We've talked about this. Manami Toyota, Akira Hokuto. That one's really tough.
4 power bombs.
Really tough. But I do think this match is a little bit more iconic on a more global stage.
That's fair.
Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness, I think, very similar.
Yes.
Very similar. The things that they do to each other
headbutts
are just absolutely brutal. Things that I hope I never ever see again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get caught up around 40. But if I look one more and see Kofi Mania, Kofi Kingston versus Bryan Danielson, I would rewatchability wise, I would rewatch this match before that one. So Orton Foley at Backlash 2004 is not going to go over Kurt Angle versus Undertaker for me. So I would put it as the new number 39.
I feel like you read my mind.
I do that a lot on this show, Paul.
I actually didn't go 39. I went 40, but still okay.
So what? Yeah. What about Kofi Mania? Sell it to me. What about Kofi Mania makes it over what they did at Backlash?
Kofi celebrating with his kids.
It's pretty great.
With the Kofi Mania shirt and the belt and Big and Xavier.
But does that make it a better match?
No, but it's just a better. You feel so good when that match is over because you're like, finally.
It's important.
Finally, Kofi has been recognized as the top guy.
It's important, and it's not just important for Kofi. You know, there's a lot that goes into that moment.
The power of positivity.
Inevitably, we do consider things more than just the match, you know? And so I think that's worth considering. It's not, I think if moments were just the match, then there are some matches on our list that don't make it.
Sure.
So.
And the evil vegan was defeated.
Oh, I did love his eco-friendly WWE
I
Championship
did
belt.
too. That was a great belt.
So you're sticking 40, Paul? You think?
It's a hard call.
Yeah, 39-40 sounds like a good place for us to be. Spencer, what do you think?
So this is interesting because I am not that high on this match.
Okay.
My first comparison was Edge McFoley because it feels a lot like the same thing, right? I think Edge was further along in his career, obviously, than Orton was at this point.
That's not very far from where we were. So I mean,
right. But when I think of memorable matches and matches that I think are the greatest of all time, I think Edge McFoley is better than this one. Not by a ton, but just a little bit. So I would probably climb down and put it right in between, just one more down. I'd put Heart Perfect just above this match, and I would place this at 47, the new number 47, right above Jeff Hardy Undertaker.
Okay. Do you not agree that it's better and more impactful to the wrestling at the time and what these two men, kind of the trajectory of their careers, than the Royal Rumble 2000 match between Foley and Triple H?
We talked about how elevated Triple H gets after, and that's
his coming out party.
That's sort of the thing about these trio of Mick Foley matches that we talk about, whether it's Royal Rumble or Backlash or WrestleMania 22. All three of them are really an end of a chapter for Mick Foley.
Basically, yeah.
And the beginning for someone else's. And so it's hard for me to say how do I compare that, right? Triple H went on to be one of the greatest of all time. Edge went on to be one of the greatest of all time. Randy Orton went on to be one of the greatest of all time, right?
So
and Mick Foley helped put them there. Like, I agree completely. But Royal Rumble 2000 was the end of that first big run for Mick Foley. Backlash 2004, we don't see him in the ring again, really, in a serious capacity for a while. And then, obviously, WrestleMania 22 is the last WrestleMania match for Mick Foley.
Yeah.
So in terms of impact, I think all three of those men were elevated because of Mick Foley.
Oh,
in
absolutely.
Varying levels and varying degrees. I could absolutely argue that Randy Orton maybe benefited the most from the three of them. I understand that, absolutely. I think that's in part due to the fact that Edge was further along in his career, already had won world titles, and I understand that.
I mean, Orton has had the most title reigns.
Yeah, I think Orton immediately gets the benefit of this match. We talked about what happens at SummerSlam in 2004 with him winning the World Heavyweight Championship. So if I'm talking about impact, I do think it's easily comparable between those three matches. However, Randy Orton probably does receive the biggest rub out of the three of them, probably followed by Triple H and then Edge.
So could I at least talk you down to number 42, which would put it right underneath DIY Revival and above Cactus Jack Triple H?
I mean, if we're going to go that far, this is the tough part about this, though, is because I think it is a better match than DIY Revival.
I do, too. That's why I ended up going higher.
So I would probably go, if we're going to do that, I would probably go above DIY Revival and put myself there at 42.
42 is a good number.
Right below Toyota and Hokuto.
4 power bombs.
But this is a really interesting section of our list here.
It's a really tough section of the list.
It is. It's a really, really tough section because these moments are historic moments.
Mm-hmm.
They're also brutal moments. And they're also things that are unlike most of the rest of our list.
And there's Joshi.
So what do you think if we had to pick one factor that might outweigh other factors? Is that factor impact, rewatchability, enjoyability?
I would check every single box you just said.
And so if you take all of those things into account and add it up to some sort of mathematical score in your head.
Well, as we all know, the meaning of life is 42.
I do think this match is easier to digest than some of the other ones in this area. And so in terms of rewatchability, like I would rewatch it before Toyota Hokuto, before Danielson McGuinness. I might rewatch it before I watch, maybe not Kingston and Bryan. I don't know.
That's such a feel-good moment.
But I would watch it before I'd watch Cactus Jack Triple H. I'd watch it before I watch Liger and Muta. If we're talking about rewatchability, I think this match has that. You know, Impact, we talked about it at length now, about how Randy Orton's career was impacted. And this is why my 47 was not a solid number. You know, like this was a conversation I needed to have.
So I guess if I'm thinking of Impact and I'm looking at what we have, we talked about this spot between Toyota, Hokuto, and DIY Revival. The impact that Toyota and Hokuto had on professional wrestling as a whole cannot be overstated.
Agreed.
Ever.
Yeah.
So I would be willing to go 42.
Landon, 4 power bombs.
4 power bombs.
Well,
that's still the record.
I mean, say no more. I mean, that's we should have brought that up at the beginning. You're absolutely right. Okay, so 42 is where we will sit, which, you know, all things considered, only a couple spots behind where you were.
Yeah.
It's sort of...
We met in the middle.
Sort of in the middle.
Sort of in the
middle.
We
Closer to y'all's
compromised.
side, but I'm happy with that. I think 42 is a really good spot.
Let's see if the listeners agree.
Yeah, 42 out of 72 so far. Let us know whether you're listening on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Do 2 things for us. One of them, rate and review. That would be super great. Subscribe as well, but also give us your feedback. Let us know how you feel about this match. Do you think it deserves to be in the upper echelon, the top half, you know, of this 72 list so far, or do you think it's kind of right where it goes, or were we too kind? You know, does it go even lower than that on the list?
And make sure you help the algorithm out by hitting the bell button for notifications.
Yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, definitely we would love that subscribe in the bell icon for notifications.
Yeah, like, share, subscribe.
Hey, and if you're listening to us on Patreon, you're listening to this early.
Yeah, you are.
Thank you so much for being a part of our Patreon family. You've got some really amazing content coming up. Hey, you $20 tier patrons are going to be back on the show for trivia very, very soon. We're very excited about that.
So soon.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. And we've got some other trivia stuff going on. You know, there's some titles to defend, if you will.
There are.
So really, really good stuff coming up on Patreon and on our main feed. So listen, I am so ready to tackle the rest of Season 4, guys. We've got a lot of really, really good stuff coming down the line. And until episode 73, I'm Spencer.
I'm Paul.
I'm Landon.
And this is
Last Match Standing.
I can't do it with this candy in my mouth. I'm so sorry. Oh, thought I could do it. Let me do it real quick. It was one of those things where, like, I breathed it in through the hole in the candy.
Oh, no.
I was like, I think I'm going to die.
Please don't.
I'm keeping all of this.
Good, you should. Well, if that's the spirit, then I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey Rock. I need scissors. 61.